The Epstein-loving Howard Lutnick, the Trump regime's commerce secretary, apparently talked with the owners of the Ambassador Bridge that links Detroit to Windsor, Ontario over the weekend. And of course, it's no secret that the MAGA fundraising Maroon family, who owns the Ambassador Bridge, has been fighting to block the Gordie Howe Bridge from ever being opened. And why? Because the Gordie Howe Bridge, located up the Detroit River from the Ambassador Bridge, will eat into the Maroon family's decades-long monopoly of international travel from Detroit. But really, I think what the MAGA Maroons hate the most is that the Gordie Howe Bridge is publicly financed by Canada. It was paid entirely with Canadian money. The United States did not drop one dime for the cost of that bridge. And that's why the Maroons met with the Epstein-loving Howard Lutnick last weekend. They needed him to tell Dear Leader Trump to block the Gordie Howe Bridge from ever opening. And I'm sure Dear Leader's age is causing him, some issues and causing him to forget. Senility is a bitch, I know, because he at one time loved the bridge back in 2017, calling it a vital economic link between our two countries. Now, of course, it must be noted how the Maroon family gives tons and tons and tons of cash to MAGA Republicans. Ben Solis from Michigan Advance paints a picture of how MAGA Michigan Republicans receive large sums of Maroon cash, like U.S. Representative John James, who's running to become governor, former Congressman Florida Mike Rogers, who's running for the U.S. Senate, and State House Speaker and man-baby Matt Hall, who's up for re-election this year. These guys all paint themselves as men of the people. No, they're just there to work for the billionaire class, the Epstein class. Steve Niebling from the Detroit Metro Times reveals how the Maroon family has donated more than $35,000 to MAGA House Speaker Matt Hall's campaign committees. How nice, Matt Hall. And here's the thing. I think you'll be shocked to learn that Matt Hall is completely and suddenly on board with Dear Leader's plans to delay the opening of the bridge. Man of the people, right, Matt Hall? And the Metro Times' Steve Niebling continues by saying that Matthew Maroon, the billionaire's son and business heir to the Maroon family's transportation empire, donated more than $605,000 to Trump's campaign and Trump Victory, which is a joint fundraising committee for Trump's campaign and the Republican Party that dates back to 2019. As always, it's about the billionaire Epstein-class grift when it comes to the Trump regime and MAGA Republicans. And look, I have zero love for Rick Flint Water Crisis Snyder. Zero love for him. I mean, if you listen to me in my Saginaw radio days, every day I would pretty much hammer Rick Snyder for one thing or another. But I supported Snyder's push when he was the governor here to get the Gordie Howe Bridge built because he was working with the Obama administration at the time to strike a deal with Canada to build the bridge again with Canadian money. And Canada paid American workers to help build the bridge. It seems like a pretty good deal to me. And now it's a 50-50 split ownership with Canada, earning money on toll roads for the next few decades, so that way Canada can recoup some of the cost. I mean, that seems like a fair deal to me, right? And it erased the monopoly stranglehold the billionaire Maroon family had on international travel in Detroit. It gave us another avenue to use. It gave us a little choice. It gave us a little competition. It gave us capitalism. But Dear Leader is fighting to keep it closed as he continues to harm Michigan, which relies on Canadian trade. And I'd be remiss if I failed to bring up this little-known fact. As much as Dear Leader is portraying himself as a defender of America from that evil Canada, for some reason or another, he and his regime have no problem bending over backward to ensure the Canadian oil company known as Enbridge can keep pumping oil through the old Line 5 pipeline under the Straits of Mackinac. Why doesn't he hold the same disdain for a Canadian oil company as he does for the Canadian government or for the Canadian people? Oh, right. It's about the oil. And I'd also be remiss if I failed to relay this to you, thanks to some excellent reporting, again, from Steve Niebling in the Detroit Metro Times, where he says, Former Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan, who's running for governor as an independent but really as a MAGA Republican, received more than $100,000 from the Maroons. I mean, what? Did you expect Mike Duggan to suddenly forego bribes from big money MAGA donors? I mean, when has he ever done that? And what has Mike Duggan said in response? I mean, I'm sure he's just firing back at Dear Leader's insanity to fight to keep this bridge closed, right? Or at least to keep it from opening. I'm sure he's out there sticking up for the hardworking Michigan families out there and saying, no, Dear Leader Trump, I'm going to protect Michigan and Michigan jobs. This bridge will open. No, he just gave some mealy-mouthed statements saying how we've got to make sure it gets opened. That's all the pushback Mike Duggan had for Dear Leader's threats to further damage Michigan's economy. That's all he said. Everyone, Michigan's economy is in danger of collapsing, and it's all thanks to Dear Leader Trump's tariffs, all thanks to his so-called economic policy that helps billionaires and corporations, but it never, ever helps the working class. And by blocking this bridge from being opened, he's not working for you, the working class of Michigan and the working class of America. He's working for a billionaire MAGA donor family. Sickening.
You can hear that and more in this week's edition of Left of Lansing with Pat Johnston.